Hello, everybody. My name is Megan Costello, and in December of 2024, I actually won the McMurtry Teaching Award. But in 2025, I was asked in December to do a presentation of some advice that I had for other faculty, and this was called Click, Watch, Learn: What YouTube Teaches Us About Teaching. And so I'm excited to present this to all of you today. I know we have a lot of friends and family and other people who are interested in watching this video, and it is definitely very media heavy because we are talking about YouTube here. So I figured I would give you a more high resolution recording so you can enjoy it. So hopefully you'll take away a lot from this discussion. So first of all, for those of you who don't know who I am Megan Costello, and I am actually an associate teaching professor here at the College of IST. I'm a lawyer by profession. I'm a geek at heart. And something that's really important to share is that I'm also an IST alumna. And in fact, I went to school at the College of IST when we didn't have as many majors or different things that we had. We just had IST as a major and SRA was just coming in as a minor. And this was me and my student group as we were working on a wireless mesh network project under the direction of Dr. Stan Ongst. We climbed up on buildings. We put different things in different parts of the campus to try to make a network work with these types of things. And it was actually really fun. You can see in my hands here, I have one of the nodes. It was not exactly weatherproof, so we had to put it in its own little Tupperware. Now you can go to any Target or any Best Buy, or you can go on Amazon and buy nodes that do similar things, but are much stronger and much better. However, in this situation, this was a great way for us to learn, and I took away a lot from this learning experience. We spent many semesters working on this with Dr. Ongst. So anyway, fast forward a few years later, I ended up going to law school, passing the bar, becoming a lawyer, working in intellectual property and technology law, and I eventually came back to IST. And it was really interesting to see the transition between being a student and then coming onto the other side of the podium and becoming a faculty member. And it's definitely something that I have really enjoyed over the years. And I've actually been here for more than 10 years at this point as a faculty member, which is really interesting. And speaking of that, and something that was really exciting about this process is that I actually won the McMurtry Teaching Award in December of 2024, and I am this year's McMurtry Teaching Award winner. So thank you so much for the McMurtry family for making this happen and to have this great honor given to us as faculty members year after year. I feel honored to be a part of this. And thank you so much to the committee for choosing me and for giving me this honor in the first place. This is really, really cool. And believe me, when I heard the news and I got the plaque and everything like that, I called up everybody I knew to let them know. I was very excited, and I'm still excited to this day. However, when all of the celebrating was over in December, I can tell you I started to get a little bit nervous because with great power comes great responsibility. And that means, yes, I have to make a speech. And so definitely the pressure is on here. I wanted to make sure that the advice that I was giving to other faculty members was helpful advice. I'm definitely one to take a lot of advice in and to use it in my everyday practice. And so I hope that what I can instill onto you is something that is helpful and enjoyable and relatable as we go along overall in this presentation. So I will tell you that I had many months trying to figure out exactly how I wanted to do this talk. And it wasn't until August of 2025 when I finally started to get a glimmer of the different things that I wanted to talk about. And it actually ended up happening in a place that was definitely unexpected, I would say, because this came up to me in a very unlikely space on YouTube of all places. I'm definitely a big YouTube watcher as a millennial. You know, this is something that we do. I have a lot of YouTubers that I watch, and one of those things that was actually served up to me as a recommendation was a video by one of my favorite YouTubers, Simone Giertz. We'll talk about who she is in a second here. But she was talking about her 10-year look back, having been a YouTuber for that long, what has changed, what life advice she can give, and all the different things that kind of tie in with that. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Simone Giertz, her name is not pronounced the same way that it is spelled. She is a Swedish YouTuber, somebody who has actually moved over to the States in recent years. And she's actually a really big inventor. She comes up with some interesting solutions for everyday problems. She has 2.8 million subscribers, and she is a self-proclaimed master of what we'll call shoddy robots. And just to show you, here's an example of her very first video that she ever posted that gave her her claim to fame. So here we go. And that's it. She had a video like that. She had a lot of different people who shared this video. She definitely rose to popularity. And today she has a very successful career on YouTube. And so over the time that she's been here, she did a look back and she did some life advice about what she learned about being in this YouTube space for 10 years. And I actually started watching this, and it was unbelievable how many parallels there were in the bits of advice that she was giving, and just how similar I found our different jobs to be, despite being so vastly different. And so that got me thinking about coming up with a relatable way to kind of talk about these different things with all of you today, probably in the most millennial way possible. And that is kind of talking about teaching and different things that I have learned over this time, but talking about it in relationship to this other job, this YouTuber job that actually is much more aligned with the things that we do than we might realize. So for those of you who thought that I would be doing some recommendations for teaching and learning YouTube channels, unfortunately, this is not going to be what I'm going to be sharing today, although I do have a few recommendations just in case you'd like them. But today what we're going to do is talk about the YouTube profession, different things that are paralleled with our jobs as faculty members here, and different things that I have learned over these years that have helped me keep going with the job that I've been doing. So I know you're probably thinking about this, like, what in the world does Simone Giertz and Megan Costello have in common? There's no way that she's coming up with these different robots and she's running these things in her class. Absolutely not. I'm not that creative. Let me tell you that for sure. However, there are definitely a lot of parallels with our jobs that may not be outwardly obvious. And what I'm going to do today is kind of talk about my advice through a lot of these different things that are parallel for us. So things like we are storytellers, we do cool things, we iterate for a living. And then I know this is a longer form one, but I didn't have a way to really state it a little bit more plainly. Our careers have unconventional metrics for showing success and progress. And so as we go along today, I'm going to take these bit by bit. We're going to chip away at this list here. And I'm going to show you some of the parallels that exist between us and people who work in YouTube, and different things that we can pull away from this whole experience as educators, as people who are content creators, performers, and just in your own lives. So hopefully you can take away a lot of great advice as it ties in with this profession. So one of the biggest things is that we as faculty are storytellers. At the end of the day, we are here to deliver very important information to people in ways that are relatable, digestible, and hopefully in a way that's interesting to people. And in order to be interesting to people, one of my best bits of advice for you to do is to be unapologetically you. Be yourself, follow your passions, and make sure that you, as you are presenting the different things that you're presenting in class, you don't lose sight of those passions. When it comes to YouTube, it's very easy to see that this is a sea of personalities. And, wherever you go, no matter what you click on, you definitely have a lot of different people with a lot of different interests that are trying to pull you in every different direction based on the things that they want to talk to you about. And it's definitely very clear that they are successful in doing those things. In my short list of people that I watch here, but I watch many, many more, their viewership is definitely things that are very, very large. Things that go from hundreds of thousands of subscribers to 21.8 million subscribers, depending on the different people that you're looking at on this list right here. Like I said, this isn't the full list of people that I watch, but these are just examples of different places where they put their authentic selves out there. They are very into the things that they're doing, and they get a following that's very interesting and very, very large. And so basically what I can say is very similar when we're dealing with academia. I'm sure you can definitely point to a lot of really big personalities in this field. And I think sometimes it's very easy for us to feel like we can get lost in this, or that we're afraid to share who we are, just because sometimes we are overshadowed by so many different personalities that exist out there. And so to illustrate this a little bit more about what's important in this space and how to succeed in this space, I do want to talk about a YouTube personality who is very important to this discussion of being authentically you. And that is Phil Edwards. So for those of you who are unfamiliar with who Phil Edwards is, definitely a really interesting YouTuber to watch. He is in the edutainment business, I guess I could say. And he's had a really interesting path in his career where he started out first curating a trivia website. Then he went off to work for a company called Vox. And then after amassing a lot of people, big following, different people who really like the videos that he created there, he branched off to create his own videos about the various things that he was interested in. And so with his career, he's actually slowly but surely amassing a lot of different subscribers. And currently, at the time that I'm reporting on this, he has 462,000 of them. And essentially, he likes to describe himself as a person who researches and reports on various rabbit holes, which we will get into very shortly. But definitely, if there's somebody who's very passionate about their craft, it is absolutely Phil Edwards. And one of the things that he actually did was he came up with a video that explained to people how he got where he is today. And he gave advice to people who are looking to be content creators in different contexts and different spaces. And so I wanted to play some of the advice that he had for these people, for all of us. And you can definitely see and feel a lot of parallels with the different things that we do in teaching. So here we go.
Have you heard of Norbert Perlroth? Before I started at Vox, I had a blog. It was called Trivia Happy. I cared about trivia. I went to the Harold Washington Library in Chicago every single week. I checked out the maximum number of books that you could check out, and I read them and did research and I blogged. My beat was trivia. I wrote about Taft's bathtub and fast food in foreign countries and Grover Cleveland's wedding cake. This was kind of Norbert Perlroth's job too. You know Robert Ripley of Ripley's Believe It or Not? It's the museums that are everywhere, and also it was an iconic newspaper column that was really, really famous at the time. It was all sorts of weird stuff that happened around the world, mixed in with trivia and historical facts that sounded untrue but turned out to be miraculously real. The person who found those was Norbert Perlroth. Perlroth went to the New York Public Library Monday through Friday, and he searched for facts. And that is basically what I was doing every single day at Trivia Happy. So what is the lesson here? Perlroth is the lesson. You've got to pick a beat to slog through thick and thin, through lots of traffic and zero traffic, through all the hits, none of the hits, through big money, no money, and somewhere in between where you have some health insurance. You've got to find the thing that will keep you going through all of that because you love it so, so much. For me, the most interesting stories are history and trivia and all the other forgotten things that pervade our culture. But for you, it could be anything. It could be foreign policy. It could be taxes on corporations. It could be new dental technology. I don't know what your passion is, but find the thing that you are Perlrothy about and chase after that, because that is the thing that is going to sustain you long enough to actually get a job doing it.
All right, so great sage words of advice from Phil Edwards, and that is to find something that you're Perlrothy about, and that will sustain any of the highs and the lows that kind of come at you in your profession. And now for Phil Edwards, I just wanted to show you a sampling of some of the things in his feed, the different things that he comes out with. And you can definitely get a feel for the things that he does. He talks about the most mundane things that you could ever think about, like the breadsticks at Olive Garden, of all things, right? Or truck stops like Buc-ee's and things like that. And he can turn it into a story that is just so amazing. You get a history lesson, you get some nerdy facts and figures and different things that tie in with it. And all the way through, you're just captivated by this particular storyteller. And I think he is a great and very passionate person with the very mundane things that he really involves himself in. And I can definitely say that no matter what he is talking about, whether it is something super involved or it is something that is super simple, you definitely can see the passion shining through as he's talking about these things. So for example, some of the things that he'll publish that are shorter form than his long form videos is these shorts that he'll put up on YouTube and TikTok and all these different things. And he'll talk about different things in everyday life that you never even think about, that just kind of exists out there in the universe. But yet it's so captivating that you can't look away. And so, for example, here's one of his newest ones where I'm sure you've seen this cup before. He starts to ask, why did this cup become so iconic, and kind of give you the history of that floral cup that was everywhere in the 80s and what it was replaced with and why it was replaced with these things. And who even thinks about this stuff? It's really interesting stuff overall that he's doing here. And so all of this to say, I definitely took a path, in a very similar way to what Phil Edwards was doing. When I was starting up in my practice and I went solo, I actually was very Pearl Rothy about teaching the law in very unconventional ways. The law is a very boring thing. It is a very dry thing. And if you don't combine it with things that are easy to digest, nobody's going to want to learn about the law. And so as I started up my career, I actually had a blog where time after time, post after post, I was coming up with different ways of talking about the law where I combined different elements of pop culture with these dry elements of the law. So they got a little bit of a lesson mixed in with things that they could relate to. So I talked about everything from a startup company that made STEM toys for girls, got into a fight with the Beastie Boys over a song's copyright, to the Star Wars kid, a very early meme, and what happened with his life after this and how he's taken a stand against cyberbullying. Or even something as mundane as real property, when in October I talked about how a house was considered to be haunted as a matter of law. So it's kind of interesting overall, all of the different things that I was talking about there. Now, I will say, when I first started up my career in the college, I was really worried about letting this geeky side of me shine through. And especially in the very beginning of my career, I played it really straight. And, I just kind of did the things that the professors that came before me did. And we had different objectives that we had to meet and different things that we had to talk about. And I was like, good, I'm meeting all of my objectives and I'm good to go. However, over time, I really definitely felt like it was missing the heart of a lot of the stuff that I was doing in my blogs that were so successful and gained such an audience and all of these different things. And I decided, what's the hurt in trying to kind of create different things for the classroom that could be very similar to that? And then when you know it, I took my time and I worked through different materials and I started incorporating a lot of these geeky aspects of the things that really intrigued me, different things that were happening in the world, different things that the students were interested in, things that I was interested in. And before you know it, I have a very geeky approach to talking about the law and doing it in a way that combines it with all of these pop culture things that people are interested in. And I think by making that switch and kind of bringing myself back to my roots of the things that I was, quote unquote, Pearl Rothy about, it definitely allowed me to show a geekier side of myself, to let the students know a little bit more about who I am and the things that make me tick, the things that I'm excited about. And I think that overall, it definitely makes for a much more engaging, fun, inclusive classroom that everybody gets really excited about. And I'm excited every single day to come in and to bring in new stories that I'm really geeking out about. So it's really interesting to see how that switch has improved my situation so much. And where I can't fit it into the slides and the different things that we're talking about, I also do incorporate at the end of every one of my classes this segment called the distraction of the day, where essentially if I'm playing a game or if I'm watching a TV show or if there's certain things that are happening in the community that I'm really interested in sharing with my students, but I can't necessarily fit it into what we're talking about for the day, I include that as a way for the students to get to know me more. And it's opened up a lot of opportunities for conversations and things like that. So while we may feel like we need to have this big, serious presence for a lot of people, I think it really does help quite a bit to show our true colors, to let our guards down, to geek out about the things that we're excited about, and the passion will shine through, whether you are talking about the parallels between Pokemon and the legal system, or you're talking about an iconic cup from the 1980s. So definitely let your geekiness shine through, and the passion and everything behind it will shine through with you. So in addition to being storytellers, another thing that I mentioned is that we both do very cool things in our professions. And I think more than a lot of people can say, we have a situation in our working lives where we can do a lot of cool things and we can definitely make a lot of change based on the cool things that we do. But I will say that a lot of times, and especially for teaching faculty, sometimes we don't think that what we're doing is very cool or nobody will want to listen to us, and we start getting nervous about sharing those types of things. So I would say that if you are doing something cool, and I know that there are a lot of people in this room that are doing lots of cool things in their careers, my best advice to you is to share it. Get out there, shout it off the mountaintops, and let people know that you are doing something super interesting. And it takes a lot of courage to do. And I will talk to you a little bit about how I got over that over my time here teaching in the College of IST. But just to kind of pull the parallels in with YouTube, as you know, this is definitely a space for a very long form video show and tell of all of the really cool things that people are doing. This is just a small sampling of different things, but from raising $11.5 million for St. Jude's to running your own company where you get to invent all of the things that you come up with, to buying your house, ripping it down to the studs and building it back up again, to showing off an impressive vintage computer collection. There's all different ways that people can show off the cool things that they're doing. The person who's up here in the middle, you probably have recognized this person before, and if not, you may recognize his name. His name is PewDiePie. He is actually semi-retired now, which is hard to believe in his YouTube career. But very recently, what he even did was he spent $20,000 on a supercomputer that he built in his own home. And he actually allows people to use this for research purposes on off times to do research on a lot of different diseases and things that need the computing power. So he's sharing about those different things. All of these YouTubers are sharing the things that they're doing. And it's a really interesting time watching them episode by episode, day by day, kind of going through the different things that they're doing. But I want to also show you a situation where somebody almost didn't share something and found themselves in a situation where once they finally did, how much of a better place the world was after this actually happened. So I promise you a really millennial discussion. I'm going to point us back to a time with a really old video at the time that YouTube had just got its beginnings. And we're going to watch it right here. And then we'll talk about, you may even recognize this one. We'll talk about this as we go along. So that was Here It Goes Again by OK Go. Definitely a very important video, at the dawn of time when we started watching YouTube videos, but certainly one that if you remember this was a 20-year-old video, the greater part of 20 years it's been up. People have been watching it. It's been very interesting to see this as the beginning of, what viral videos were, right? So this was one of the very first viral videos that we've ever seen. Back when this came out, this was 2006, so a long, long time ago. YouTube was in its infancy. You would have to share these things via email if you wanted to get this out to people. But essentially, this was something that was very successful when it hit the internet. It actually had 900,000 views in one day. And over the time that it's been up for the greater part of 20 years, it actually had 118 million views across all of the different platforms that it was on. And this was something that was done in 17 takes. It had a $4,000 budget with 8 treadmills that these folks were dancing on. And from the information that they gave from the band, they said that they weren't allowed to rent the treadmills, but if they didn't break the treadmills in the process, they might be able to sell them back to the person who sold them to them in the first place. So really interesting stuff. And if you remember this video, I'm sure you remember that this was one of the most popular videos that was out there on the internet, and it was shared all over the place. And we'll talk a little bit about its success. One thing that you may not realize about this video is that it may not have seen the light of day if it wasn't for them taking the risk and posting this. Because this actually sat on somebody's computer for almost a year after having this, and they decided that they were not really sure if they wanted to post this or not. If you're familiar with this band, they had a hit that came before this one. They had a dancing video that was pretty popular, but they didn't want to be known as that dancing band or that goofy dancing band that only does this gimmick every time they release a song. And so they were really nervous about sharing this with the world. Well, thank goodness that they did. And I'm sure they're very thankful that they did it as well, because upon its release, they actually got a lot of acclaim for this. First of all, the single topped national and international charts, and it was one of the very few songs that they were able to accomplish this with. But one thing that I found that was really interesting was that this song actually won a Grammy in 2006 for being the best music video. That's pretty good for a $4,000 budget, a Home Depot tarp in the background there. And, they're competing with people who have $1 million budgets or higher to create very similar things in their field. So very, very interesting stuff. And then as time went on, Time Magazine actually named this one of the 30 best music videos of all time. So all of that to say is that, if you're ever unsure, or if you ever think that this is something that people won't want to see, it's amazing what can happen if you take that leap, if you try to do things, if you try to get it out there and you're brave and you do this. Now, I will say that there's a lot of parallels in the life of a faculty member. I actually had faced a lot of different doubt and uncertainty when it came to sharing different things about the stuff that I do. And it wasn't until the spring of 2020 when I really felt comfortable enough to share some of the stuff that I was doing in my classrooms. When I first started up at the College of IST, I tried, semester after semester to implement some really interesting, cool technologies, teaching techniques, all different things that were happening inside my classroom that nobody knew anything about except for the students and for myself. And I never thought, day after day, that anybody would want to hear anything about the teaching practices that I was doing. And in spring of 2020, wouldn't you know it, we had a showcase of different things that people were doing when they were teaching during the pandemic, when it finally hit that, maybe people do want to hear about the stuff that I'm doing. During spring of 2020, I actually used YouTube, of all things, to help me in my effort of teaching my classes during the pandemic. Essentially, what happened was I used a special feature in YouTube to live stream the different materials that we were going to have for the day. And we had some great conversations, and we had students who never spoke once in my class speak up. And we had a very inclusive and exciting classroom setting together using the YouTube platform, of all things. So this method of teaching is known as Simulive learning. And actually, after sharing that and people got wind of the different things I was doing, it really kind of caught fire. And there were a lot of people with a lot of interest, a lot of people who wanted to write papers with me and to share different things about the stuff that I'm doing. And it was just really amazing to see that people actually wanted to learn about the different things that I had. Just as a side note, this was actually inspired by a YouTube use that was being done by another band that I really love called Gorillaz, who during that time wanted to have global events where people were kind of watching their videos all at the same time. And their use of YouTube actually got me inspired to share my classrooms in the same way. And that's how things got rolling there. But regardless, and the thing that was really interesting to me was that I learned very late in my career that people really do want to hear about the different things that we're doing in our classrooms. So much so that after that presentation happened and after I shared the different things that I did, like I said, it just kind of caught fire from then on out. I really wanted to share all of the different things that I was doing in my classroom. So Lisa Lenz and I, if you see the top right photo here, we actually published in a national journal. We actually did present our materials at a national poster session. And we also had Fred Fonseca as well, who was working with us at the time, to talk about different ways to engage your audiences in non-conventional ways. And then from there, it just caught fire. I had a bunch of different presentations and different things that I did in all different aspects of my teaching. And right now, what we're actually working on is me and Kevin Sylvester and Chris Gamrat are all working on syllabus collection and distribution and different things like that. We're going to be coming up with what's called a policy playbook after doing our listening sessions and kind of working with people to collect that information and to distribute that information. So who knew, different topics like this would be interesting or resonate with different people. You absolutely should be sharing the different things that you're doing. You should definitely get out there, try to publish, try to go to things like the TLT Symposium, for example, and show off all of the cool things that you're doing in your classroom. So just like they do on YouTube, where they're showing off the different things that they do, you should show off the things that you do. Definitely a really great space to be able to do this. The next thing that I want to talk about is that we iterate for a living. And I know that whether we are creating YouTube videos or we are going into the classroom day in and day out, these are definitely things that are very recursive in nature. As soon as somebody is done creating a YouTube video, they're coming up with the next one and the next one and the next one. And sometimes it can feel all-consuming when it comes to creating the different content that we create. And for teachers, it's definitely the same thing. Although we are on a much more defined timeline, every 15 weeks, if we're working in the fall and we're working in the spring, every 15 weeks we find ourselves back at square one, trying to do the same things over and over again and trying to teach the same classes over and over again and kind of working through the same content. And it just becomes something where it is a very iterative practice that we go through. And it's very much like we're going through this carousel of just repeating things over and over again. I know sometimes, depending on the way that you look at it, it can be a very daunting thing. But I will say one of the best ways to think of it and one of the best ways to approach this type of a job is to what I call embrace the Great Reset. And we'll talk a little bit about what the Great Reset is, but you will see in a second just how many parallels there are to the different things that we do in our jobs from day to day. To illustrate this point, I have a YouTuber that I want to talk about that has been around not as long as the many YouTubers that I'm talking about here. However, he has risen to viral success. His name is Ryan Trahan, and he does a whole bunch of different types of videos, review videos and travel videos and all different kinds of stuff. And over time that he's been online, he has amassed 21.8 million subscribers. He's a very popular YouTube. If you haven't heard of him, at some point in your lifetime, I'm sure you will. He is definitely a rising star. Well, one of the things that Ryan Trahan does that's really interesting is that during the summertime, most often, he will have these challenge videos that he does for himself where he raises money for various organizations across the United States. Most recently in the summer, he did a challenge where he went to 50 states in 50 days and he raised $11.5 million for St. Jude's for cancer research, which is amazing. However, one of the challenges that he did was known as the Penny Series. And we'll talk a little bit about what this is, but he incorporated something into it to keep this series interesting, and that was called the Great Reset. And I'll show you how he presented it to his audience. So here we go.
The Great Reset. I'm sorry. It's so cringe.
But anyway, yes, he had what was called the Great Reset. And just to explain this a little bit more so you can kind of get where I'm coming from here, is that in this Penny series, his whole goal was that he was going to travel from California to North Carolina to deliver a penny to Mr. Beast. Mr. Beast is another really big personality that's in the YouTube space, but essentially this ridiculous challenge was what was going to allow him to raise awareness about the various charities that he was raising money for. And all the while he was going to do this by starting with a penny, and then he was going to use that penny to kind of build himself up and up and up and to get bigger and broader things as he was kind of working through this challenge. So essentially, the way that he was going to travel from California to North Carolina was when he starts with a penny, now he starts to work into gaining different things from that penny. So he usually would buy a pen from somebody, then sell that pen for some other amount of money, and then work his way up into having enough money to do different odd jobs in the community. Everything from buying water from a drugstore and selling that for a certain amount of money and building his revenue up a little bit more, to doing odd jobs for people like walking their dog or delivering meals or mowing their lawns, to even doing things like telling a joke and saying, I'll bet you $1 I can make you laugh. All this while, what he's doing is he's amassing money as he's going through, and he's using that to buy food, to find himself shelter, to get himself a bus ticket or a train ticket to the next place. And all the while, during this time-bound challenge that he had for himself, he's using that money that he's gained from the penny to kind of move closer and closer to his end goal. To make things a little bit interesting, though, as much as that sounds interesting to kind of trade himself up to different things, he actually had a really interesting perk of donating. If a person donated a certain amount of money to his fundraising campaign, what would happen is it would trigger what was called the Great Reset, and it would essentially set him back to zero. So let's see what that would look like when this would happen. So when this is triggered, this is what would play.
Great Reset.
Reset.
All right. So it definitely comes with a lot of fanfare, and definitely for that amount of money, it's you want to make sure that you are letting them know that, it set you back from where you were to where you are now. And it brought him back down to a penny. But the thing that was really interesting with the penny series is that even though he was set back to a penny, and he was set back to a penny quite a few times, he made a lot of progress, and then he brought himself right back to a penny because of these donations. Every single time he was able to get right back up, to be scrappier than he was the time before, and to be much more successful every single time. And you can definitely see him getting more money. He's more successful. He has bigger and more lavish things as he's working through this stuff. And nothing can really put him down, even though he says, oh no, I'm back to zero again. And I think there's a really important thing to take away from this is that every time that he did this, it wasn't like he was back at complete zero once again. Essentially what was happening here is he was picking up all of these important skills, all of these important things, and wouldn't you know it, he found himself back to where he was every single time. And so this is definitely very much related to what we do in our everyday lives as faculty members, because as we know, when we run on this 15-week calendar, when we go from spring to fall to spring to fall, sometimes it feels like we work so hard starting in week 1 and working our way all the way up to week 15, learning who our students are, learning the needs of the different classrooms, the ebb and the flow of the different things that happen, finding different ways to teach the things that we do, and so on and so forth, all for us to get to week 15, like we are in right now, to find ourselves in a situation where now everything is lost again because you're back at square one once again when you kick off again in January. And then when you kick off again in August, and then you kick off again in January. And it just feels like it can be this never-ending cycle where you just never feel like you're getting ahead. Well, I just want to remind you that every single time that you go through this iteration, you have picked up so many new skills regarding all of the different teaching things that you've done through this time. And then whether it's your first semester that you've gone through and you've picked up a lot of life lessons along the way, or it's your 50th semester that you've gone through, each and every time you learn new things about yourself, you learn new things about the process, you learn how to be much more economical with your time. And as you iterate, as you continue to climb up this ladder and you look back at the different things that you've done, it's amazing how much you can accomplish and how much you can change semester after semester. So if it's your first semester, your 50th semester, for me, I'm 10 years out. When you look back at all the progress that you made, it's amazing to see how much progress you've had. So instead of treating this as a, oh no, here we go again moment, embrace the Great Reset, realize that you have a chance to do so many amazing things and you've learned so much that yes, this is definitely something that's a good thing and it's not a negative thing. And I will even say, to drive this even further, if there are new policies you want to try, if there's a new teaching method you want to try, the nice thing about this is because we iterate, because we know we have another semester that's waiting for us after 15 weeks, you can try new things, you can push new boundaries. And if it works for you, great, you can keep going with it. And if it doesn't work for you, you can try something different. I love the fact that we have the ability to do these types of things and we don't always feel like we're stuck on this track and we can't move away from the things that we're trying to do. So embrace that Great Reset and just try new things and push the envelope with the different things that you're trying to do. So definitely something that I've learned to love. And I think there's a lot of parallels in what we can learn from Ryan Trahan. Now, this is a long one. I know I talked about how it was kind of hard to say this a little bit more simply, but our careers as a YouTuber or as a faculty member definitely have unconventional metrics for showing success or for showing progress. One of the things that's really unusual about the job that we do is that because we iterate and because we have a space where we're pretty much leading ourselves and we're kind of doing things in our own way, sometimes it's hard for us to get lost in a lot of different pieces of data and to really figure out where we are as far as success is concerned. And I think that it's important when we think about these things together is to really clearly define what success means to you. Now, while I would like to take the credit for this particular bit of advice, this actually brings us back to where it all began in our discussion, and that is with Simone Giertz. If you remember, she was a YouTuber who made these robots and different things like that. And in her video, this was one of the pieces of advice that really did stick with me and really was something that I wanted to share with all of you. And so I want her to talk about it a little bit, but then I'm going to frame it in a way that we can think about both in YouTube and in our profession here.
I remember spending the beginning of my career being so stressed out. Like, I remember shaking from being so nervous and so stressed because there was like people in the comments yelling at me. There was data and statistics yelling at me. But I made a decision that kind of became my like guiding star throughout my career. And that was to really clearly define what success meant to me. Because there are so many people who want to define what being successful is, or algorithms that want to tell you what it is. And it's like having great views, or having people really like you, or to get like interviewed a bunch. And sure, all of that is great. But for me, what was more important was that I was really proud of the projects that I put out. The second thing was that I really want to be in control of how I spend my time. And then maybe the most important thing was that being loved by the people who know you is a lot more important than being loved by strangers. So based on that, I made the decision to only put out about a video a month, and also just to let my career grow at a pace that I could like sustain. So I could have hired a lot more people and increased the amount of content that I put out, but I really didn't want to, because I wanted to make sure that I was running the business and not that like it was running me.
So as I say, I mean, it's really definitely a piece of advice that I think sticks with us, whether we are YouTubers, content creators, just faculty members, anything in life, that it is really important to understand that it's important to clearly define what success means to you. And as Simone was talking about, in her own profession, there are so many different things that are pulling her in so many different directions. Things like reviews from people, comments. You have algorithms that are telling you what's good, subscribers. You have people who are playing your videos, all of these different things that are kind of weighing very heavy. And looking at any one metric or a combination of those metrics, it definitely can be something that could cause a person to descend into madness, wondering, am I successful or am I not? Even though they are perfectly successful and they're doing an excellent job. And the same thing can be said about our profession as well. You know, when we're looking at teaching and learning and all of the different things that come into it, there are so many different metrics that tie into what can make somebody successful. Everything from your enrollees to your number of graduates to the number of awards, research papers that are published, and even your student reviews. And if you're thinking about it on a day-by-day basis, how many people show up for your classes day by day? How many people are participating? There's so many different ways that we can look at the way that we do our job that any one combination of those things can absolutely cause somebody to just descend into madness, trying to figure out if they are successful. And so I really do like how Simone thinks about this, in that she tells you to have something that's kind of your guiding light, your guiding star as you're looking at these things, and to look inward at the different things that you are doing in order to determine your own success. I definitely encourage you to choose certain metrics, different things that you can kind of look inward on yourself so you can see your progress and so you can see how success looks to you. And just to kind of show you how I look at things, what does success look like for me, I definitely wanted to riff off of some of the things that Simone was talking about, because really when I think about it and when I look back on my progress over these 10 plus years that I've been here, truly these things do stand true. And these are the reasons why I feel like I have done a successful job so far. First of all, I am absolutely proud of the classes and projects that I create. I give my work 110%. When I go and I present it, I make sure that I give it my all. And regardless of what is happening from day to day, I am definitely excited and proud of the things that I've come up with. In addition to that, I find joy in how I spend my time. The thing that is so amazing about being a faculty member is that you have a lot of leniency to teach things the way that you want to teach them, to research things that you're interested in researching, to combine all of these things together into your classroom. And every single day that I come into the classroom, it is always so much fun to be able to share all of these passions with my students and to be a part of this greater community at Penn State. Definitely a really important thing. But then finally, in the different things that Simone was talking about, she said, and this is really important, she said, maybe the most important thing is that being loved by people who know you is a lot more important than being loved by strangers. And I have to say that that is definitely a really important takeaway when it comes to having a job, especially an unconventional job where it's very hard to understand progress or to see progress as it happens. And so one of the things that I also wanted to say that I use as a gauge to show my success is that I just like to say, I am surrounded by people who make this journey meaningful. And I truly mean that. When I say people who make this journey meaningful, I mean all of you who are in the classroom, all of you who showed up on my presentation day, for those of you who are listening from afar on this recording, all of you make this journey meaningful. And so I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart how lucky I am to have found such a community that is so amazing to me. From the admins that I work with to my fellow faculty members, staff members, students, helpers, everybody, I am so grateful to be somebody who can get up and work with you every single day. You inspire me to do my best, and I'm so excited to be here and to work with all of you. But it's not just all of you. There are so many other people in my life that have shaped me to be who I am today. My friends, my mentors, my family members, people who I have worked with over the years and who continue to work with me now. All of you have shaped me to where I am today, and I would not have ever been able to get this McMurtry Award if it wasn't for all of you. And so I just want to say thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for all of the things that you do, for supporting me, for believing in me. And you truly make it so that way I am so excited to get up in the morning and to do my job day by day, good days, bad days, everything in between. And it's all because of you. So thank you very much for your time. Thanks so much for tuning in to listen to me. And I hope that you took away some helpful advice as you go on to teach your classes and to do different things in the future. So thank you so much. And again, thank you for this honor.